In this video, we are discussing the use of social network analysis to investigate sense of community. Sense of community is an important factor while investigated in educational research. The sense of community indicates the extent to which learners feel to belong to a particular community of learners they are studying in. If the learners are having a low level of sense of community, that typically is associated students feel either isolated or they don't get so much in return from the rest of the community compared to what they invest. At the same time, also the sense of community indicates the extent to which learners are able to benefit educationally if they participate in the community. For example, to what extent they can get some new information or potentially feedback from their peers. It is also shown that a sense of community is one of the important predictors of students' retention in universities. That is related to the well-known theory of Vincent Tinto, who found that social integration of students in a learning community is the strongest and the most important predictor whether students will be retained in college and whether they will complete their university degrees. Therefore, the question becomes, how do we measure sense of community and intervene if some students potentially have a low level of sense of community? Commonly used instruments for measurement of sense of community are self-reports, that is to say, questionnaires. However, as you can imagine, administering questionnaires may be rather difficult. Looking for some alternative indicators of sense of community may be important. Rather than asking students explicitly whether they feel members of a community, it would be probably useful to look into the data that are collected, for example, by educational technology that is used for communication between students, and thus based on those indicators try to predict what is the sense of community of students. The question becomes, what is or is there an association between sense of community and network position? This was investigated by Dawson, who conducted a study in which he involved over 400 students enrolled in an Australian university. These students had an opportunity to interact with their peers via online discussion forums. From these online discussions, social relationships were extracted, and a social network analysis was performed by computing network centrality measures. In addition, the students completed the classroom community scale. The classroom community scale consists of two major factors: overall social community and learning community. Overall social community is typically referred to the general feeling of connectedness with other individuals that are involved in that community and the sense of potential isolation. On the other hand, learning community is more related to the benefits that are associated with learning, for example, receiving feedback from peers. Dawson conducted a regression analysis over these data and found that closeness centrality and degree centrality were positively associated with the sense of community, both social and learning community as well as general sense of community, while between centrality was a negative predictor. Generally, from the practical perspective, positive association of closeness and degree centrality measures with the sense of community measure can be explained by the overall number and the volume of the connections students may have inside of a community. That is to say, some students with a high level of degree and the overall volume of the connections that they established in a network means that they probably also created small communities, that is to say, smaller cliques, and they have many possibilities to interact with others. On the other hand, those with a lower number of networks do not have so many opportunities, and thus potentially instructors can predict that those students may require some additional help so that they are better integrated within the learner community. In such cases, some additional guidance to those students can be appreciated and offered. On the other hand, the negative association of between a centrality with sense of community can be explained that the students who are brokering between different small sub-communities that are created in a network of learners are typically investing much effort and time to broker between all these different connections. At the same time, they don't feel that they receive much in return. Therefore, in such cases, it would be desirable to advise such students to connect with more potential students in the network so that they increase opportunities for them to interact with others and thus increase their sense of community. I would encourage you to read the paper by Shane Dawson this video presented and also discuss this with your peers. Thank you for your attention.